Well, the escalating violence in Iraq has some lawmakers worried that this could lead to another 9/11. House Homeland Security Committee Chair Michael McCaul and Senator Lindsey Graham raised the red flag on the dire consequences of President Obama's Iraq response.
This is a crisis. It does recall a response, not going to Palm Springs for a fundraiser. I talked to Ambassador Crocker yesterday. He said that this is the greatest threat, national security threat, since 9/11.
According to our own national director of national intelligence, FBI director, the next 9/11 is coming from here. The seeds of 9/11s are being planted all over Iraq and Syria.
Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan warns the snake is out of the cage on Iraq, and talking won't get it back. Eric Bolling, what do you have to say for yourself? You've had a change of position.
He starts talking about some kind of reconciliation talks between Maliki and the Sunnis. I mean, look, this snake is out of the cage. It's a great big giant snake. Nobody's going to get it back in there by any kind of talking. And I would say that ISIS has got itself pretty well positioned right now to control, at the end of the day, whatever that day may be, a large swath of territory up there in Iraq and Syria, which threatens not only Iraq and all of its neighbors, but certainly threatens the West.
All right, well, maybe the pacifists in the White House will hire a snake charmer to resolve this whole situation. Would you like that, Eric?
No, Mr. Cowan, General? Is that who it was?
Lieutenant
Colonel, sorry, Colonel. Cowan said he used the snake analogy. I'll use the cockroach. It's more applicable. They can move around. They'll go from here to there. Once you secure this area, once you clean the cockroaches up, you'll find them somewhere else. Jesse, you said earlier it's about, the price of oil is up, and if we don't do something, it'll continue to go higher. There was an alleged free Iraq for the past year and a half, right? I mean, that was supposed to be under control, and oil is $105 a barrel anyway. The movement into Iraq by ISIS, oil's up $2 a barrel. It's like less than 1.5%. So it's not like this big massive move.
Well, I think once they take Baghdad, if they take Baghdad, then you really have to worry about oil and gas prices.
So in other words, should we go protect Iraq over an oil price? I mean, I don't think we.
No,
but do you think
it's not primarily about oil?
Yes,
there's other strategic regions. You don't just want to let a third of Iraq, which borders Iran, which is sandwiched between our allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel, to be taken over by this Al Qaeda army. I just don't think
Saudi Arabia, our allies, Saudi Arabia, a lot of help they've been.
I know, and they're financing these jihadists in the north.
Yeah, exactly.
Because ultimately, we were just talking about this in the break. It's Sunni versus Shia, and we could have potentially a civil war, unleash hell in the Middle East, with Iran being empowered and Israel in the crosshairs. And I just think right now, if we let it wait like we did in the late 1990s and let everybody gather steam and do a few missile pricks, let them have safe haven, then I think it comes back to our shores. And I think that's why you need to preemptively do something, and hopefully he maybe takes action.
I listen to these politicians shoot their mouth off about another 9/11. These guys have oversight over this. Where was their intelligence? What were they about to do? Every time something goes wrong in the Obama administration, Lindsey Graham gets out there and shoots his mouth off about what's going on, and there's going to be a 9/11. Why didn't you tell us?
Well, I don't think that's fair. I think that Senator McCain and Senator Graham, amongst others, have been very vocal about, in particular, the administration's lack of action in Syria, something you and I have talked about for several months as to why the administration couldn't figure out some way to at least contain the situation. I don't think it's fair to say he just jumped on it. They have been on top of it, but if the president's in charge.
What about the red line comments, Dana?
Well, so it was about a year or so, maybe 2 years ago, that President Obama made the red line comment in Syria that said, if Syria uses chemical weapons, then X will happen. X didn't happen after Syria used chemical weapons, and we've been in this, I guess, for lack of a better word, a quagmire since then, but one that is so dangerous. But it's had other consequences, not just in this part of the world where you have foreign fighters joining up with Syria and Bashar Assad empowered. All around the world, you see some instability based on, if you can trace it back to that moment where the United States decided they weren't going to enforce the things that the President of the United States had already said. And in particular, I would point to what happened in Ukraine today. President Putin has now announced that they are cutting off gas supplies to Ukraine. This is after he's taken Crimea, sent troops into Ukraine, and also armed the rebels there. Rebels, meaning these are basically Russian agents. In addition, in the South China Sea, you have additional problems, and I would argue that in some ways, other administration action, we're going to get a chance to talk about this in the next block, ignoring Central America has been something that has happened for many decades, and it has been to our peril because now all of this is coming to the president's desk, and we have the president who basically signaled this weekend that he's just kind of board with all of
Let's
this.
remember,
Right. I mean,
over 80% of the chemical weapons are now out of Syria. There's been some
How many
success.
chemical weapons does it take to actually cause a problem?
We'll have to put one out yesterday.
80% is not good enough.
Yeah, Syria is
Well,
a
they're
great
working on it.
success, Bob. Let's point to Syria as a great
Well,
success.
well,
No, but
it's
let me
never
just
been
go
a
with what
success.
Dana just said. Think about it. The world has really fallen apart over the last 3 years
I forgot
on
to
his
mention
watch.
Egypt.
The world
Okay,
has fallen
you
apart
have
in the
a-
last 3
yeah,
years.
listen, you have
How
a-
about the last 3,000
You have
years?
you have an invasion on the southern border. You have Crimea being annexed. You have a new Cold War. And now the Middle East is in flames. What does the president do this weekend? He golfs. He goes to a fundraiser, and today he signed some executive action on gay rights. I mean, I don't understand what
Crimea
this
was
guy's
blown up in
priority is.
1920s.
Given up. I think it's clear
19
what his priorities are. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not confused about him 100%. I am counting, breathing, living for 26
do you
months.
not
Last
think
week
we
he
learned
said
the
the
lesson?
world has never been a safer
Wait a
place.
second. Have we not
remember
learned
that?
a
He
lesson
doesn't have an
in Vietnam?
idea. No clue.
We never lose lessons about Vietnam. It was a wasted war.
Yeah.
It killed a lot of people.
I think the fact that we
Bob.
left too early and didn't secure a political situation was a problem there.
What?
Yes, I would argue
Well, imagine
that.
if
Bowling,
Eisenhower
final
just took out all the troops after World War II in Germany and just said, okay, I'm
Korea.
done.
Bowling.
Yeah, I'm done.
By treaty, they had to keep them there.
When
Okay,
these two
we
are
didn't get
done
a
with
treaty
the
in Iraq.
history lessons, history of the world.
At least we know something.
Yeah, no, it's all very interesting, I'm sure. I want President Obama on the golf course. I'd rather have him on the darn golf course than in the situation room, planning, devising another, troop deployment. Keep him on the golf course.
Because he's got no three-point shot
I think it's
either.
clear
I
he's
think
not
he'd be
gonna do a
better
true
at golf
deployment.
from all that golf he plays.
I mean,
It just seems
at
swing.
some point you have to deal in reality. Nobody is talking about a troop deployment.
Well, Jesse was.
No one-
He said we need boots on the ground to
Listen,
make
I
sure
said
our
we need a
airstrikes
few
are effective.
special ops
No,
guys on the
he wants to
ground.
have command
What, they don't
posts
wear
that can
boots?
conduct
Special ops
intel
guys.
So
operations.
you think the
with special
president's not going to
forces.
send special ops guys?
You think that's
Eric had
going
it
to
funny
stop
and everybody missed it.
2
All right.
centuries old war?
Okay, fine. We're gonna wrap this up. I'm
They were
not super
loafers.
happy about it, but we're gonna move on. Directly ahead.
Searching for the thrill of it. All along we are calling out.
Taking